Don's been a good friend of mine for a long time now. Out of college, he was my trainer, and not just trainer, a real mentor of mine, for many reasons, not just being a guru in the fitness world and being a celebrity trainer for some of the best in the world, and the most recognized, but a mentor for who he is as a person and a family man. And it was a really exciting episode to reminisce about the times that we've had at the Masters, and stories of him training me at Drive 495, the gym that he started in New York City, and his certifications with TPI and connections with the golf world. And we started the episode right before it with a amazing workout, which I'm sure you had a great take from.
Well, and I'm still recovering from it, frankly, even months later. But Don was really neat to get to know. I mean, he has an incredible passion and aura about him, and how he carries himself every day, and the way he's built such a beautiful family with his wife and kids, and really just lives in an incredibly honorable way. And I think has a lot of lessons that he passed on in this conversation, and frankly, some very motivational ones too. So I think this will be a really fun one for everybody to tune into. I love learning about how you guys, got to work together, especially, after your diagnosis, and how much he was there for you in that. Mm-hmm. And I think it'll be very evident for everyone in this to see how deeply Don cares about people, and ultimately cares about sharing his passion with others too. Absolutely. So enjoy this episode and stay tuned.
Don, thank you so much for having us at
Morgan,
our
thank you.
house here. This is so awesome.
I love this, man.
Man, this is
so good.
This is really cool. It's just really special to reconnect, first of all. This kind of started as, hey, I want to come work out at your new spot, the barn,
yes,
at your house here in Long Island, and then kind of somehow morphed into this podcast, and it's just all meant to be. I think hopefully we can have an awesome conversation to kind of highlight where you've been in your life and how you've got to where you are, and show some people how to be motivated, because I know you've done that with me in my life. And
well, you didn't need much help though. You didn't need much help. So
I think in the last 2 hours, Jeg might have been a little motivated on this last workout here.
Yeah, definitely. I think our best start to a pod is coming in hot off a workout and pumping each other up and feeling the energy, dude. It's pretty electric.
It's always better after a workout, right? It's like no matter what, it just changes your, you said it earlier, it changes your physiology. Mm-hmm. We started the session off today with some breathing, which was, something that you were implementing in. And I'm like, let's go with it, right? And it's always good to connect with good people, especially when they're aligned with you. So,
and you said something that was really cool too when we finished the breath work. You go, man, you always forget how hard that is. And it's true. It's true. I hadn't done it in a minute, and then right away, just boom, you start into that breath work, and it's hard. It's hard work.
And it's something we all have innately, and that is one of the most important things in life, or of life, to be breathing, and just the power in it, and the accessibility that everybody has with it, and how many different modalities of breath work that there are. And today we did one that was 7 minutes long, but we felt energized and pumped up,
and it went like this.
Yeah, and it went so quickly. You're tingling after, and we're all in a good mood going forward to get a jacked hypertrophy workout in, the Don special.
No, I love it, but I also feel like you have to do things every day that get you a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and I think that's the problem with most of us, is that we're always doing things that are in our comfort zone, and because it's comfortable, it's just like, okay, I'm used to this, and I'm going to go out for that. I'm going to run 3 miles, or I'm going to do things that feel good, and that's fine, but are you really excelling? And I know what the three of us have in common is we always want to get better, right? Like we always want to improve. And I think that's one of the special things in life, like to be more successful, to love more, to be stronger, to be more mobile, to be better at golf, whatever it is, like getting better is one of the best joys of life. It really is.
It was like we were talking about creating that armor on ourselves. Mm-hmm. Obviously it can be, a real case of physical body armor with muscles as you get older, or as you're trying to get stronger, but also that armor that you create mentally when you're pushing yourself through those boundaries, pushing yourself through the past few sets or the last few sets, and maybe in a time where you don't think you can do it, or you have someone there like you helping you push through it. To go back onto your point about comfort, that's something that I talk to everybody that I come across about, is that there's no part of life where you can sit on your couch and get better, really. Like, you're not going to be sitting around doing nothing and getting better at your dream. You have to go through those uncomfortable times to find a way to find comfort in the uncomfort.
100%.
And that's how I've found, at least, to keep chugging away and like each step getting better and better.
But you also surrounded yourself. I mean, a word that you always use is team, right? And I've gotten a lot of help in my life, right? I just have. Like, I've had a lot of times where things did not go my way, and I'm running to mentors or clients or friends like, oh man, I need help right now. Like, we're in trouble. And I think that's okay. I think that also allows you to really respect when things are good and really appreciate when things are good. But it's also, you understand that things couldn't go bad. And I think my favorite quote ever was, every time in life I was feeling rejected, I was being redirected to something better. And, you and I, we've had a long run together. I mean, everything that you've gone through, where at the moment it seemed like the most negative thing, and you've found a way to spin it into something positive. And, literally like trying to change the world, like you are, like we are, right? That's something I've always tried to do in fitness. Fitness for me was never about like taking my shirt off and looking a certain way. Like at a young age, I wanted to be the modern day Jack LaLanne. Like, I wanted to be the guy that people were like, wow, he made a difference. He was someone that motivated me to get off the couch. He changed my life. He allowed me to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm the reason why I went after this. Like, I wanted to be that person. And, I think when you kind of look at your career, your life like that, it becomes somewhat of a mission.
Sure. Yeah, I think like it's a unique chair for me to sit in today with you guys, given your incredible friendship and brotherhood, right? You guys have known each other for how long?
2010?
Yeah, so 14 years.
Yeah,
13, 14 years. Yeah, 14 years.
And in those
Let's
years,
say 14 years,
the most incredible journeys and stories, and can't wait to dive into those today. Just
got a lot of them.
As a third party that gets to come in here and meet you for the first time today. I mean, I've heard about you for the longest time, and, watched your stuff on social media, and I'm inspired just being around you this morning, and the energy and your intention, and just how fired up you are to help us get better today. And I think, maybe before we dive into, your guys' story together, talk about, the early days in your life. What was the motivation early in life? Was it sports that first got you, fired up and motivated and getting into, working on your body, or what was kind of what first kicked things off for you?
I think I kicked off for me in the second grade, which sounds kind of funny. Yeah. I had a big time hearing problem. I had a stutter. I had to go in for massive ear surgery and couldn't like form a sentence. And back then they would put you in classes, like special ed classes, where you'd go in with a small group, which today they would never do, because they would never have a class of 5 kids roll out of a room in front of 3 classrooms. So suddenly we're the stupid kids, and they're all the normal ones. So I think at a young age, I was coming home and I was pretty bummed out. I was looking at my mom and I was like, oh man, like I want to beat this guy up, or I was having a lot of trouble coping with anger at that time. And so I went in for a surgery on my ears. I had tubes put in my ears. Ironically, I saw the surgeon the other day who did my surgery.
No way.
Yeah, probably 39 years ago. And he looked at me, we started laughing. We gave each other a hug. I got a bit choked up. And
wow.
I think it started for me then, because I remember my father was a really good baseball player growing up, and he worked in catering. So kind of this blue collar mentality, where my father was always working weekends, and in the restaurant business, they were bringing me to work at a really young age. So I understood at a young age what customer service was. And I sure as hell knew what hard work was, because it was like we were working in this catering hall where it was like hustle, hustle, hustle from 10 a.m. to I was working some mornings till 3 a.m. on the weekends at 12, 13 years old. I mean, my old man was bringing me in, and they believed that was really important.
Here in Long Island, right?
Here in Long Island. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but backing up, I remember I went out, I started playing ball with my dad, and went out to the school one day. There was a recess game, baseball. Finally, they were playing baseball, and I was like, oh, okay. So I went in and I just cleaned up. And I remember going in and just everyone was like, oh my God, like. And I came home and I was just like, watch, like, they had a game today. I basically at a young age, I was telling her like how well I did. I was like, I was by far the best person out there. Like, I'm good at something. She looked at me and she's like, you're gonna be good at a lot of things, but just go after what you love. Like, do you love this? And I said, yeah. She's like, then go after it. And I remember that to me was probably one of the most two valuable things that she taught me beside love and all the great things that my parents did for me. I'll give you the other one later on. But I remember at that point, I started becoming athletic, but everything was behind baseball. It's like, swim team to get stronger at baseball. Soccer, be better at baseball. Hockey, I liked hockey, but I was like, oh, my legs will get better for baseball. And then I started working out, lifting weights at 16 years old. And I remember coming into school in the 10th grade, so I was about 16. And I remember all the girls were like, oh my God, like, what happened to you? And I'm like, wait a second, like, I can get better at baseball doing this and I can get the attention of girls. Like, okay, sign me up.
Bang.
So out of nowhere, I had all these motivations, and I went off to play Division I baseball and had a really successful collegiate career. I was super excited about my 4 years.
What college?
Sacred Heart University in Fairfield. And, I had a couple tryouts after. But as I was going to these tryouts, with the Mets, the Mariners, I remember going to these tryouts being like, when am I going to get my workout in? I'm thinking about the tryout. I'm psyched about the tryout. I'm not nervous, but I'm like more concerned with the workout. Like, when am I getting my workouts in? And I had to go to this independent tryout, and I got picked up to play over in Europe. And finally I got a job as a trainer. And I was so stoked to be in fitness now professionally. And, actually backing that up really quickly, I'm having a conversation with my mom. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life. And I'm like, I got to find something in fitness. And she's like, well, what about these trainers? And I'm like, yeah, but they don't make money. She's like, don't worry about money. Follow what you love.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
There he goes, coming back to the same
so
thing,
good.
right?
His mom is
she's the best. I can't even talk about it without getting like,
She's the best.
but she's like, follow what you love. You're going to be successful. So like at that moment, I remember it was just this like weight that came off my back. I'm like, oh, I know what I'm going to do with my life. Like, I was 21 years old. I'm going to be a coach. So I went into New York City and I drove around the city. I did not know, there was no navigation. There was no iPhones. I think I had a beeper on my hip, 1999. And didn't know north, south, east from west, even though I was from New York. Lived in Long Island, a little bit different. And I was in a suit and I had my resume, and I pulled off at like a place called Crunch and a place called New York Sport Club and a place that was called Equinox. And I got hired at every place. And I remember going home that night and being like, I chose where I'm working. I'm going to go work at this place called Equinox. At the time, it was, a young club, and ex-NFL players were there, and people working on their PhDs, et cetera. And so I really kind of joined this family, and that's when my career started, but never understanding that it was going to go the way that it went, because like we talked about earlier, what I'm doing now didn't exist back in 1999. Like, you can try and have your 20-year business plan, and you can try and have your path. What I do now wasn't around back in 99. Like, there was no digital media, there was no paid spend, there was no virtual teaching, fitness retreats. What was that? I just had 150 people from over 30 countries. Like, that didn't exist back then. So to have that type of reach as a coach now is was something that back then no one was doing. And so to be doing what I'm doing now, I really attribute a lot of it to those negative things that I thought were the worst things in the world for me back in the second grade. Now it's like, when you think about, well, I'm going to take that away from you. What if I was to make you normal in the second grade? I'd be like, no. Like, you're going to change the entire trajectory of my life. Like, you'd ruin everything for me. So now I look back on it as, again, for every time in life you feel like you're being rejected, you're being redirected to something better. And that's something I really attribute.
It's a great perspective for kids who are listening to this. Like, no matter how old you are, even adults, like, there's no normal isn't cool.
No, I mean,
like,
it's boring.
It's boring. Don't follow in footsteps. Like, make your own footsteps. Like, everything the hardships that you go through are going to be where your strength comes from.
Yeah.
At some point in your life. You're going to find an answer. That's why, like, I've been doing so much experimentation on my body with plant medicine, with diets, with fasting, with training. And it's like, you try to find those hard things that are hard for you specifically, because you want to be able to learn a lesson from them. There's no such thing as mistakes, right? Like, they're just lessons.
Right. And even when you were, I don't know if you remember this, but when you started going down your journey, down your path, you got on the phone with me one day and you were like, I'm doing a little bit of a change of direction. I think he was a little nervous to talk to me about it, but I think you thought I was going to try and argue with you. And I was like, dude, you got to figure this out. Like something like a switch went off in him where I was like, okay, like I know Morgan. I know him well enough to know that when he approaches something, it's not half-ass. It's like, okay, like I'm not only doing this to find a cure for myself. Like there was a bigger picture here for him. Yeah. That became his mission. So I would never try to talk you away from that. Like you needed to go through what you needed to go through to be where you are today. So.
Yeah, I mean, you taught me, like when I first started training with you out of college, at Oklahoma State, we didn't learn about nutrition at all. So I felt like the healthiest I've ever been because I was like super jacked and I gained a lot of weight and I was hitting it far and felt really good. But I came to you and you're like, all right, well, what are you eating? And I was like, I eat whatever I want. Like, I feel good. Like, let's just get jacked. He's like, no, let's take out dairy and see what happens.
See what happens.
And it wasn't like you're taking out dairy because it's bad. Let's see what happens. What does your body do? How does it react? And I'm like, well, how am I going to get a Jersey Mike sub? Because I get cheese on the Italian. Like I got to have, what about like Parmesan cheese on my pasta? My mom's Italian. I got to have Parmesan cheese.
I get it.
So
I get it.
So I'm like, what the fuck's going on? I gotta this is weird to me. Like I've never had discipline like that. And then when I started taking it out for, I think it was like a month, and I started sleeping better and I started having better recovery times and I was more clear with my words.
It becomes motivating.
Yeah, it's motivating because like, oh shit, I can make a simple change like this and have just like my whole life get better in so many different aspects.
Right.
And that's what really stemmed my ability to search and explore because of you. And I tell that story a lot because that was my start into my diet explorations. And to this day, like it's really important and even more so. But
we're always evolving, right? And that's what I always loved about this industry is that what you put into it, in a way, it's 99% of the time is what you're going to get out of it. Now, I'm not talking about people who are diagnosed with sickness or disease or things that come out of the dark and you're just like, oh, this is terrible, this is tragic, et cetera. I'm not talking about that. But if you're an unhealthy person because of your choices, you can make that decision right now to make that change. And I always tell people, it's like, you're one decision away from being on the good path. Like, how long is it going to take? Like, your next meal, make it good. Like, try and get a good night's sleep. Stop drinking alcohol tonight. Like, go for a walk. It doesn't have to be a session like what we just did. Like, move, feel better. Like, it's not 80% diet and 17% training and 3% supplementation. It's 100% up here. There's no percentages on what it is, nutrition and fitness, and it's 100% up here. Because when you make that decision to feel better, then that becomes motivating. Like it's easy to stay motivated when you're feeling good and when you're seeing that type of return. It really is, right? It's interesting.
Yeah, but it takes discipline, and I think like through your journey, like you've learned that a lot, and what we were talking about raising kids is leading by example. Yeah. And I think you're a great motivator, especially in the gym, in the sessions, but you've always been there for really all of your clients through the days of Drive 495 in New York City when we were like, he was more of a psychologist to most of his clients than he was a trainer, because you'd be like, oh, this person called me last night at like 2 a.m. I had to talk to them for an hour and a half because I just broke up or had a business problem or whatever. And it's just like,
you always feel that connection, right? Like you always want to, I feel like good coaches want to be that person that their client can turn around and say, I need it. Like my line is, I want them to look at me as a necessity, not a luxury. Right. And I've gotten away from a lot of the one-on-one coaching. I think the stuff I do now is more like consulting, or if a client is prepping for a movie, they'll call me as like the big gun to come in and help them get set up. And I enjoy that. But those days where I was on the floor, I still have it. Like he called me the other day. He's like, can we come out? And I'm like, dude, who are you talking to right now? Like, what day you want to come out? Like, let's just come on, man. Like, we don't have to talk every day. Like you've got a family. We're all busy. It's like, you make that phone call, you tell me what you need, and we're there for each other. I mean, he's always been that way for me, and I've always been that way for him. And that's when you start surrounding yourself with that team, that family, and they are the ones that help elevate you. They're the ones that you want to do this journey with, because you start surrounding yourself with a group that all wants to see you succeed. You can do some pretty powerful things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Friends or family that you get to choose.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just, there's nothing better than that.
No.
Speaking of celebrity training,
Yes.
how did that, like, through working from Equinox to then starting your own gym, like,
It really fell on my lap. I mean, it was bizarre because so I was a trainer at Equinox for a year, and then I went and I started my own one-on-one training business in New York City. And I was really successful at a young age. Like, I was 22 years old, training 40 to 60 sessions a week, and going home to home. I was the resident trainer at the Ritz-Carlton Battery Park South. I ran that whole gym down there, and then I was training at a facility on the Upper West Side, and going into homes and making money and meeting people, and it was awesome. But I knew I had this like entrepreneurial spark where I wanted to own my own thing, because at that time it was never being successful on digital. There was no digital. It was like to be successful in the gym business, you had to own gyms. Mm-hmm. So my brother and I went out to the Titleist Performance Institute and met this guy, Dr. Greg Rose, who was a very mentor friend. The best, brilliant. And I got so many ideas from him. But I went through this experience called the TPI experience. My brother and I looked at each other and goes, wow, imagine coming back to New York and opening a facility with indoor simulators and a bar and like doing entertaining, but club fitting and all the stuff indoors. People in the city, like Bayonne Golf Club, I don't even think was open back then, or it might have been opening, right? It was early, 2005. Might have been around that time, but there's no city golf. So we were really the first ones. I'll tell you right now, we were the first ones to really do indoor golf in New York City by far. No one was even close to us.
Place was bad.
Yeah, it was incredible, and we were doing it really well, and we were really passionate about it. And then 07, 08 hit. That whole Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns debacle hit, and we noticed that a big portion of our corporate spending just shit the bed. We're like, oh man, and my brother and I are like, oh man, like we're gonna have to really change our business model. Right around that time, actor by the name of Hugh Jackman was training at my club. A buddy of mine asked me if he can bring him in. I said, yeah, I know who he is. Hugh wasn't as big as he is now, but bring him in. You know, my buddy Rico Wesley, and Rico brought him in, and then Rico ended up having triplets, and they ended up moving. And then Hugh came to me and was like, I want to train with you. I'm like, Rico? He's like, you're blessed, go. And I was like, great. So I started working with Hugh for a year. And, you know, I did things differently with Hugh. I mean, back then I definitely was doing, the training was great. I would definitely approach him differently today, because you just become that much more knowledgeable and you realize how to work with someone in their late 30s, 40s, 50s through experience. I've done over 40,000 1-hour sessions in my life. Like, I've trained a lot of people. But Hugh wanted to do like press. Let me help you out with some press. And I was like, no. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, man, we're not doing any press. He's like, he's kind of looking at me like, are you nuts? I'm like, this is your sanctuary. This is your place to escape. I'm getting you ready for a job. Like, let's focus on getting you ready for the job. Don't worry about my press. And looking back on it now, I'm like, what an idiot. I should have done it. But
yeah.
No, but I think that also shocked him. And then that allowed the floodgates to open a bit, because then the referrals just started rolling in. And every single week it was like, hey, Don, it's Scarlett Johansson. I'm like, oh, hi. Like, hey, Don, it's Jennifer Aniston. And like, people are just showing up that you were seeing all over the TV. When I say every week, several times a week. The floodgates. I mean, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, standing in the gym. No one's even looking at him because they knew my policy. So Dwayne was getting like,
what was your policy?
No pictures. Yeah. If someone walks in, do not treat them any differently than the next member.
Exactly.
You be nice, you smile, you do your thing, but you treat everyone the same. There's no special treatment here. And everyone gets special treatment. So that was my policy. So Drive 495 really became this like hub.
Sanctuary.
Where, yeah, people would walk in, celebrities would walk in, they'd be working out shirtless because they weren't worried. They weren't scared about someone holding a phone. And think about that. In the 15 years I was open, between 2005 and 2015, my lease expired May 31st of 2020. 2005 to 2020. My lease expired May 31st of 2020. Never had a leak, a picture in the sense of like this got out in our club. It wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Right. And that to me was really special. And I think that's what allowed me to gain that reputation. So at that point, it was like golf fitness was big, but the superhero world was way bigger. Like, come on, man. It's like the Marvel world. So out of nowhere, I started getting calls from every actor, every celebrity, because I lived in this performance physique world. Like I was an athlete. I understood, getting ready for covers because I've been on a bunch of covers, but I understood what it is to move. So I lived in this performance physique world. So I was the perfect person for this. So out of nowhere, I get all these actors to contact me and they're like, can you get me ready for a role? And I'm like, let's do it. And we come in and it was like business. I meet them, like not starstruck, didn't give a shit about a picture, an autograph, didn't care. It's like treated them like they were either of you guys, right? And
what's the typical time of like someone to call you, be like, all right, I got 2 months to get ready, or like
I think I would normally have about 3 months, but I've had some ridiculous requests. Like I've had 2 weeks.
Really?
And they're like, what do I do? I'm like, all right, you're going to stop drinking for 2 weeks. We're going to train 6 days a week. We're going to get our steps in the 7th day and we're going to go get a tan. It's like, and then like out of nowhere, the production company's like, how did you do this? And I'm like, yeah, like we got rid of some water and gave them a tan and they look good on screen. It was just so,
dumbing it down a lot.
Yeah.
Working your ass off.
Yeah, no, we would work their ass
you.
off. But, and I would have as much as a year. Or, and that was like Hugh, I think I had close to a year for Wolverine in Australia. And
that's what I was wondering if it was for naturally.
Yeah, so I trained him for that Wolverine, but it was, I think it was the first one, but it was also, he shot a movie called Australia with Nicole Kidman. And ironically, he went right, like from the day of training, he went from me to Australia to shoot this movie Australia. So technically I would even say that like I got him ready for Australia because Wolverine didn't shoot till like 3 months after, and I think he was training with his buddy in Australia. So but I probably prepped hundreds and hundreds of people for the big, to the point now I can't even keep up, and you almost tend to forget. Like you'll see someone like, oh my God, I forgot I worked with him for so-and-so. And you try and keep track with people, but everyone has families and they're just too busy. And, but right now, my training world is really diminished. I still work with Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, their family, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, Annie Hathaway. And I'll see Sebastian Stan when he's in town, but not even much. But any of my old people call me, they need help, they need programs, I'll just send it to them. I don't even care about the money piece of it. I'm like, I'll take care of you. Say nice things.
Of course, family.
We're just on good terms.
All businesses, whatever it is, whether it's a culture, an environment, in my opinion, it starts at the top always. The culture is set by the standard that is set at the leader of the organization. Mm-hmm. And listening to you, it's very clear that you are very intentional about the culture that you're determining for whatever you're involved in. And frankly, walking in here today, again, not knowing you, immediately when you walked in, I just kind of sat up in my posture a little bit more and knew we were getting to it today.
We had fun today.
Yeah.
And you said it felt like old times. And I'm like, Morgan, we didn't lose a step.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but we picked up. It was suddenly like, we were going to start with some breathing. I'm like, great. And then we're going to go into our dynamic warm up and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And it was like, I kept looking over at him, kind of smiling at moments because we're a few years older now, but nothing's changed,
Right.
It's good.
But I think that intention that you had in creating the culture that you did, with each one of your businesses, go back to the gym in New York City, how you were able to garner that kind of community that came in and trusted you and was able to feel like they had a sense of privacy. That all started with the attitude and intention that you set at the top of the organization. And beyond that, what I'm curious to ask you about too is, what were some of the commonalities you saw in these, whether it was professional athletes or successful entrepreneurs, that you saw in them working with you, and then also, working amongst each other too?
It's a great question. I think I was blessed. I met some pretty incredible people. So I know people want juicy information, like who's the biggest asshole? And I'm like, God, like I got to be honest with you. They were mainly referrals. If you think about it, all these people referrals. I'm not going to market, hey, celebrity, come train at my club.
Right.
They were all referrals. So when they walked in, I think that guard was down already. And I think people realized that they were really comfortable, almost to the point where they would send me pictures of like their form or something like that. And I'm like, don't worry, I'm disposing of it. And they'll be like, oh no, I trust you. Don't worry. And it's like, that made me feel good because I was so panicked of losing my phone one day and being like, oh, I found pictures of all these actors in there. Like, showing their abs, I needed to see this stuff. It's like, all right, how many weeks out are we? Oh, we have a month. Okay. You have your cover in a month. Okay. How do you look? Like, it's part of my job. I need to see how you look. Sometimes I'm like, relax, you're fine. Let's just keep doing this. Or other times I'm like, okay, like we need to get in gear a little bit. So I think the commonality that I was really blessed to have was there was this level of trust out of, 99.9% of them. When they came in, they were like, we trust you. We know you're good, and do your thing and get us to our goal. And it was always very fulfilling for me. People wanted to always give me too much credit. Don got him ready for so-and-so. I'm like, no, Hugh got himself ready. Ryan got themselves ready. I was able to sit there and at least keep my fingerprint on it and, kind of be somewhat of like a mentor throughout the process. Like even Ryan now, like he's a machine, like he knows what to do, but it's fun sometimes. It'll be like, all right, you're going overhead. I don't like that for you. Let's go up on a 70-degree angle. Well, why? External rotation. Like I think you're a little healthier in this position here. He's like, he looked at me the other day. He's like, that was a good hack. Like, I'm still using that. I'm like, good. Like, so sometimes those little bits of information, even though they're not every day, could be a couple times a month. Those are things that they carry with themselves for a long time. And that to me is like, okay, that's gold, because that's immediately helping them become more successful, become more efficient. Maybe now his back's not as sore because he's not going to extension as much to create that external rotation. So there's all these things that I'll always be a teacher. I'll always be a coach. It's something that no matter how successful I ever become, God willing, it's like, that's something that I need to continue to do because it's part of my makeup,
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing all that.
Thank you.
I want to talk about a couple of subjects to lead up. I think the next one will be family.
Oh yeah.
And then golf after that.
Sure.
And then, family. It's funny because the three of us are all in such different positions in our life with family. And I just had a baby, a 10-month-old baby girl. Her name is Rye, and it's like life-changing. And just like, so she's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. She has my heart on a string.
Yep.
And you have Donnie and Amelia. Yep. How old are they now?
So Amelia just turned 16 in August. Donnie will be 15 in November. So,
and what are some ways what are like the pillars that you and Mel have used to raise them? The pillars. So, I mean, first off, I think there's this word that I don't use a lot with talking about children, but it's accountability. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important because kids are going to push your buttons. Accountability with them or yourself?
With them, they have to have accountability for their responsibilities, right? Like they have to be held accountable. Mm-hmm. And I think, it's very easy as a parent to turn around and it's 8 p.m. and you're tired and it's like, oh, all right, like we'll let this slide this time. Like you have to hold them accountable. I think parenting is a job that's 24 hours a day, and it changes. Like when they were 5, we'd get upset with our kids about something. And now it's like, it's completely different. Like my son gave himself his own haircut last night and he left hair in the sink. Like, do I care that he gave himself a haircut? It doesn't look bad. Clean up the hair. So now he's got to be held accountable for that. Cause I've told him 10 times, he's got to clean up after himself. And I'm just a stickler on that. I believe that if I give too much leeway there, he's going to push my buttons. And then
that's their job.
They've got to take out the garbage. Like my wife and I this morning was like, Donnie didn't do the dishes, Amelia didn't take out the garbage, and they're going to kill me for revealing this stuff on here. But that's part of it. Don't do it, and I won't reveal it. But they need to understand that, like when they don't do what their responsibilities are, that they need to be held accountable. When it comes down to their fitness or their nutrition, like, am I force feeding them? No, I was never like that. I try to lead by example. I think one of my favorite stories was years ago, they turned to me, like this is probably 7 years ago. I remember because Amelia was about 9 years old, Donnie. Yeah. So roughly they said, can we go for a hike? I said, absolutely. I said, I promise you ice cream. We'll go for, I told you we can get ice cream. It's Saturday. We'll go for ice cream in the afternoon after the hike. They said, great. So we go for this long hike up by Comset. Mm-hmm. Everyone's sweaty, happy. It was like a good day. We had a great, I was like, all right, guys, let's go for ice cream. And they go, no, we want fruit smoothies. We want to eat healthy. And my wife and I look at each other, we start laughing. We're like, okay, let's get fruit smoothies. So we took them for fruit smoothies, right? We're like, okay, this is kind of cool. And then 3 hours later, they turned to us and like, can we get ice cream now? And I said, of course you can. because they're kids. And it's like, I don't want to rob them of that. So people think because I'm a fitness guy and like, I'm a health guy and, you know, blah, 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 blah. It's like, I'm going to rob them of that. Like, they're still children. Like, let them be children. I was so happy that they did their best to make those decisions early on, by the hike and the fruit smoothie and getting some nutrition in their body, and couldn't be any more proud of that. But that was the example. I never wanted to turn to them and say, oh no, ice cream's bad for you. Like, no, like, ice cream's good for you if you have it once in a while, and you should enjoy those sort of things. So I think really, my wife and I really tried to treat them like adults at a young age. But when they don't do what they're supposed to do, we're going to call them on their shit. Yeah. And we're not going to, like, when they get in trouble, we're going to call them on their shit. If they get grounded, we're not budging. And I really felt like, up until obviously now, because, you know, they're only 16 and 15, you know, who knows what, you know, the future has in store for, you know, for them when it comes down to their behavior, et cetera. We believe that they're going to be in a good place. Then they're really good kids. But we're really happy on the direction that they're going in, and we couldn't be any more proud of how, when they meet people, when they meet adults, how they handle themselves and how they look them in the eye, people in the eye, and they shake their hands. But they're kids. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to leave hair in the sink. They're going to not take the garbage out at times, and we're going to get pissed as parents. So I think it's understanding as a parent that this is a job that doesn't sleep. You don't get days off.
Yeah.
You don't get days off.
That's what I'm learning right now.
No. And right now, like, the moments that you're having, like, I miss that. Like, I miss my kids at 10 months old or a year old. I miss having them in bed together, and, you know, my wife and I playing with them in bed. And now, but we have other moments. We have different moments with them when we're at dinner, and my wife and I will just start looking at each other, and we're like, did they just say this to each other? Like, they're having this conversation with us right now. And, like, we feel like my wife and I are sitting with two adults. So these are new memories that we're building, but you'll miss the 10-month.
Yeah.
Trust me.
I'm already,
it's awesome.
Every day I'm just like, man, I have to be so grateful. I try to slow down time.
Yeah.
Because I can see her growing every day. There's new attributes and characteristics of her every single day, and the way she looks at me, and the way she obtains information. And it's wild to learn, one, that we created this.
Yep.
Like, there's 8 billion humans on the planet, but I still can't fathom how my wife created this in her stomach.
You know, hold on, you just stole my line, because this, when my wife had Amelia for the first time, I remember turning around being like, people don't make a big enough deal about that.
Seriously, dude.
Like, you're sitting there, like, watching this life just appear.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, my wife's breastfeeding, and I'm like, how'd you know to immediately do that now? And I'm sitting there and I'm like sweating, and like, my wife's practically holding me up, because it was one of the most emotional moments of my life. But it truly is. It's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
It truly is a miracle. But the whole parenting thing, it just changes and it evolves, and it's pretty amazing. But I really feel like that word accountability, which most people aren't going to give you that answer. Our goal is to raise good people.
Yeah.
Like, my goal out of my kids, I want them hardworking and I want them good. And if they can just do that, like, good, like, be good, help people, be hardworking. Like, I feel like, to me, those are like two of the most important attributes they can develop. And I feel like if they have that, like, you guys can do anything you want in this world.
And I think that's a popular topic right now, because you look at, you know, what's going on with Coach Prime and Deion Sanders, and there's this almost, you know, awakening of discipline. It's like people want to see that people are being disciplined again in society, and kids are being raised around, you know, good leadership. And it's whether you like him or not personally, or what he stands in is you know, to your own depiction. But point being, it's refreshing to hear, you know, that accountability and discipline is on the forefront. I mean, it's fun for me to sit here, like you said, we're in 3 different positions of life. I don't have any children yet, but I've known since I was 19 that my number one purpose in life is to be a father.
Yeah.
And it's like this time where I'm so awake in watching the people around me that I admire and how they're doing it, and just soaking in this information. So God willing, I can be as ready as possible when the time comes. But to your point, there's some things that just are fire hose at the end of the day. You're learning by the day.
My daughter just got a permit. It was the scariest moment of my life, driving a car with her. I had sandals on. I kicked my sandal off.
Yeah.
I have a big pickup. I'm driving with my foot.
She was driving the pickup?
Oh yeah, she drives the pickup in the Jeep. What other car do we have? We have two. We have 2 jacked up trucks, and my daughter's got to learn on these things, and she's doing a great job. But like, I'm sitting there with my foot, my bare foot, ready to be thrown over the center console to hit the brake, and I'm sweating, and we're like, she did a great job, but like they're different stages in life. Like I remember the first time she rode a bike, like it was that type of fear, like don't fall, I'm running next to her. Now she's behind a car, the wheel of a car. She's got a boyfriend now. Like there's just different stages, and
Wow.
you know, it's wild. People are like, oh, he's a great kid. Like he's just, and she's happy, and she's doing well in school, and like we're blessed. Like, but parenting for me, it's like it's this constant. Like you're in school right now. Like you've got to, like my wife and I were a team. Like sometimes we sit down, like, how do you want to handle this? Like, how are we going to handle this? Like, all right, let's not address it tonight because we're having a good moment. Let's wake up tomorrow when everyone's not tired and we're happy, you know, and then let's sit down and we'll address it as a family, and they'll understand that this is real. And, you know, it is, I think my wife and I, it sounds corny, but you are a team.
Yeah.
I think good parents, they become a team.
Yeah. I'm glad that this is a topic of conversation today, because I really want to shine a spotlight on you and your family, because it's a goal that Chelsea and I have had, is to become like you guys. Like you and Mel are freaking amazing. Like the relationship that you guys have, the way that you talk to each other, it's just like truth and love.
Yeah.
And
not always perfect. Trust me. There are times, you know, we work together. So 99% of the time we're good, but there are times we disagree, and there are times things go wrong, and, you know, we're pissed at each other for a few minutes, but you rebound and you realize that we want the same things.
Yeah.
We want to grow this home of success and happiness and love. But we want our kids to understand hard work. Like it doesn't matter how much money I make a year. It could be $1 billion. It could be $1,000. Like my kids they see this blue collar type of work ethic out of me, and they see that, yeah, in a way I'm providing for people, and I have to service, and I have to go in with this kind of blue collar type mentality. And I'm proud of that, because they understand that it's hard work, that, you know, sometimes work is happening at weird hours of the day. But, you know, I think that's been the biggest challenge for me as a parent, is disconnecting, right? Disconnecting from work. And it's something I've really had to learn to do differently since working at home. Because when I was in the city at Drive, or I was 15, what was it? 22 years I was working in the city. Now I'm working from home. So now there's got to be this cutoff. Like a few years ago during COVID, I remember my son turned to me being like, Dad, put the phone down. Like we're watching a movie. And I just threw the phone. I was like, oh my God, am I doing this? But he called me on it, which is awesome. And
it's awesome. It goes the other way.
I was like, oh my God, he needs me to be present here right now. We weren't even talking to each other. I literally took my phone and threw it. I was like, oh my God, I'm being that guy. And now I find that when we're together, my daughter, my son, like phones go in the pocket. That can wait. Like I need, like this is the most important job right now. They need to see that I'm present. They need to see that they're my number one priority. You know,
special, man. And would you say, like, the way that you're teaching your kids, the way that you're leading your family through this life came from your parents?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same question.
His parents are amazing. I know the answer. They're freaking amazing.
I gotta be honest with you, man. Like I came from the most loving household. My parents were incredible. They would give me their shirt off their back. I mean, they were just the best, and they were always there. They're always there to support. They're older now. They're turning 78. Like they're in a different chapter of their life. But fortunately, they live 2.5 miles down the road from me. So I try and stop by there 5-6 days a week. I was with them last night. And, you know, my mom's dealing with some health stuff. She just had hip replacement, and you're seeing them go through things, and you want to be there for them. You want to be that support system for them. But yeah, 100%. I mean, my success, my path, not 80%, not 90%, 100% was there, like them sitting there going, we got you. Like, come on, like, this is what you want to do. We support you. Even when, like, I was at an age where I started, like, I woke up one day and it was just like, oh, years ago, like when we thought like you eat egg whites. Remember, this is a long time ago. Like now we eat whole eggs again, right? But like, oh, I got to eat egg whites. Oh, I got to eat chicken breast. Oh, I got to eat vegetables and brown rice. And then I just show up to the house one day and I have this like crazy diet, and they're looking at me like, what the hell is this? And my dad would joke around. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, you can eat what you want. And I sat down with them one day and I'm like, guys, I'm good at this. And they just looked at me and they were like, what the hell are you talking about? They didn't even say anything. I'm like, I'm good at this. I'm going to be good at this. I need you to support me. When you turn around and you break my chops, or you joke around about having bad food and how I should love, I need to do what I need to do. They never brought it up again.
Yeah.
Wow.
The second I would go over to the house, they're like, okay, we're making meatloaf and mashed potatoes tonight, but Don, we steamed your peas and we steamed this. And it's like they were suddenly completely on board. And that to me, like, was this lesson where like they always had my back. And that to me was something where probably the most valuable thing that my parents ever left for me was that they always had my back. This is unconditional level of love, and it's what I want to give to my kids.
I think it's a lesson too of like with your authenticity and drive as well, to be like, look, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I know you love me, so therefore like
I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, this is.
Please, like, just tell me you're aboard. Otherwise, like, I don't know how I'm going to respond to this. So I come over here, and they were like, "We got you."
Yeah.
Like, we get it. They didn't understand. They were from a different generation. Like, suddenly they're seeing my parents. When I was a senior in high school, I got in trouble. It was the summer going into my senior year of high school. I was playing in a summer league for baseball, and they actually tried grounding me from the gym. They didn't understand. They were like, all right, you're grounded. You can't go to the gym this week. And I was like, what? And I was like, how the hell are you grounding me for something that's good for me? I won't go out this weekend. Ground me from going out. I had a party. Ground me from partying. Don't ground me from the gym. They're like, you're right. You're not going to the party. So they didn't really understand. Like, they didn't understand. Now they're like, oh, the fitness piece is the best thing. Like, this is what you need to be doing. This, but they were just like affiliating with something that I like to do, that for like muscles. Like, no, it's like this. It was part of my survival. Mm-hmm. Fitness was always something that there was nothing I can do in life where an hour and a half, 2 hours later, come out of it and be in a completely different mindset.
Yeah.
And it was the one consistent behavior I had in my life. We don't know how we're going to wake up. We don't know it's been raining here for 4 days. We can't predict the weather. We can't predict if there's a government shutdown coming up or not. We do not know. But turning around, you showing up today, and then an hour and a half leaving, how do you feel after that session? You felt amazing, right?
Totally. 100%.
We had a great meal. We
great
all
lunch.
feel great right now. Having that control over your emotions every day, I think it's very powerful, and it's incredibly underlooked and undervalued. But that is one of the reasons why I got into that. I was at a young age, I felt a certain way, and then I got into something that allowed me to feel a certain way. And I was like, oh man,
wow,
I want more of this.
Yeah, yeah.
And now I can allow people to feel this way. I want more of this.
Yeah.
Because I was getting the same feeling by seeing people leave a session feeling all jacked up. The same feeling that I would get from doing it for myself. So that became powerful. So that's why I went off in the path I went off in.
Yeah, it's like controlling your day. You get to control at least one aspect of your day.
You can't do that with many things.
It's life-changing.
Yeah, you can't do that with many things.
Yeah, it's incredible.
How much do you attest that back to not only your own personal drive, but also the people around you supporting that vision? I mean, you talk about your parents when you came to them and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. They rallied up behind you and pushed you. But how much do you attest still to this day, the people's support around you helping motivate you each and every day?
The motivation factor, I got to be honest, I didn't need. I didn't need it. I was self-motivated in the sense of like, I wanted to do this and no one was getting in my way. But having that type of support, I feel like supercharged everything that I did. Obviously the love piece, and maybe I'm not answering that fairly. Like, if my parents didn't love me, could I do what I did in the industry? Could I be as supportive as I was? I'm thinking about it differently now. Maybe if they didn't love me, would I be able to be as supportive to other people? Maybe not. Maybe I'm not giving that aspect of your question enough thought, but I feel like the motivation piece, I was doing it no matter what. Would I be as good as I was? I don't know.
Yeah.
Would I be, that's a fair answer. Would I be as good as I was without their love and support? I can't answer that. I don't know.
That's beautiful awareness, though, honestly, to look at your own upbringing and know like you had that love. Could things have been differently if you didn't? You know,
Right.
I mean, I think it's beautiful that you had that kind of foundation around you to know that this is who you are, this is what you want to do with your life. And I'm curious, like when you met your wife, right? How much did you guys kind of bond off of these things in common, a passion to motivate yourself, whether it was through fitness, or when did that click for you? How old were you guys when you met?
We met I'll tell you, July 25th, 20 years ago was the day that we met.
In Vegas.
We met in Vegas, which sounds hilarious, by the way. Like, and I remember coming home and my mom, like my track record with women was a little volatile. Like, I wasn't doing anything wrong, but I definitely wasn't settling down anytime soon. And I came home and I told my parents, I'm like, I met someone. They're like, where's she from? And I'm like, she's from Vegas. And my mom was like, oh, Donnie. Just shook her head, like, seriously, like, why are you always making this hard on yourself? Like, come on, man. And it was really funny. But then they met her and they understood. But the thing with Melissa, when I met her, it wasn't this like instantaneous, we saw each other and it was like, oh. We hung out, we met out that night, and kind of ran into each other by accident, or maybe it wasn't on her end. She just kind of showed up where I was, right? And we ended up just kind of going out and hanging out and then talking on the phone a lot. It wasn't a time where there was FaceTime. So I remember landing in New York after spending a few days with her in Vegas and getting off the plane and being like, fuck, man, just shaking my head because I couldn't stop thinking about her. And I was like, oh man, really? Like this isn't good, man. I was like, I can't get involved with someone who's 2,000 miles away from me right now. Like I knew I was opening drive. I knew all these things were going on. And then we started doing really like corny things that were out of my, kind of out of my scope a little bit. Like we were renting movies and putting on headsets and saying, ready, hit play. And we would hit play and I'd be on the couch in New York. She'd be on the couch in Vegas 3 hours back before she had to go to work. And we'd be watching movies together and stuff like that. Then she came up to New York for a weekend and we just had a blast. And then it became really easy. It wasn't even like 1 year where we went back and forth. I think I was in Vegas 15 times in a 12 in 12 months. And she was flying out to me she'd get off of work on Sunday. She's working at the Hard Rock. She'd get off of work and get on a red eye and land Monday and be fly out Tuesday night.
Wow.
And we did this for a year. And finally I looked at her and I said, listen, what are we doing? She's like, well, what are you saying? I'm like, do you want to move in? She's like, absolutely. She was at UNLV working 2 jobs. And she literally like told her parents, like, I'm moving to New York. And they were like, like, are you like, what? And she transferred her credits to Hunter and she got a job in New York. And she went to Hunter and she graduated and she lost the majority of her credits. So she finished 4 years of college, I think in 2.5 years. She was just way smarter than I will ever be. And, then we started this kind of journey together. But I think what's interesting about us is that, we got married, we had Amelia a year later and she became a mom and she still, she worked. But then when she became a mom, she focused on another job, which was being a mom. And I feel like things as good as things were for years, I just feel like things became elevated when we started working together. Because there was this other team element that suddenly we realized I didn't realize I needed her in business. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean to sound like sexist or chauvinist, but like she was at home raising our children and I was at work. So I was kind of like, I'm handling work and you're handling home and we had our bound. But then when she started working with me on Dino Brands, which is our company now, I couldn't believe like the stuff we've done with our company. No chance in hell I'm doing on my own. Like, so she came in and there's a level of organization, this level of attack. And so like, I'll sit, if I could pull out a book right now and read 3 pages, I'm exhausted, right? She could sit there, like she read 1,300 pages the other day of a book. Like, how do you do that in one day? Like that's abnormal. It was Sunday. It was a
Seriously.
day off.
What book is that long?
She read a book on Sunday. It was like a day off. It was rainy. Where like we took a couch day and she read 1,300 pages. I'm like, who does that? I haven't read 1,300 pages in a year. But she just has this like, she's got this mind, right? And so for her to come in and to take over that area of our business and allow me to focus on the area that I needed to focus on, team effort. Like she ran with this, I ran with that, and we became a success. Where at Drive, I was wearing a lot of different hats. My brother was wearing a lot of different hats, and it was like we couldn't truly focus on things to make it the success that maybe we could have. But maybe that was our path. Maybe we had to go through that for us to be where we are now. It's like, I'm not looking back on that saying it was a failure. I think it was a big success. But 15 years in a gym, you're going to learn a lot. 15 years where you open a second gym and then you launch an app company and, some investments went bad. I mean, there were just things that I guess were part of our path. I mean, would I go back and change little things? Sure, maybe. But I'm also looking at the past now and saying, man, this is what allowed me to get to today. So I'm sure some of my investors would have been like, no, you want to change that because we had a couple of bad investments. But, right now it's all good and we're in a good place.
I'm about halfway through Walter Isaacson's biography on Steve Jobs right now.
Oh, sick.
And one of my favorite quotes I've taken from it was from Steve Jobs. And he said that when we look in the rearview mirror, we can always connect the dots versus when we look ahead, we never can.
Right.
And so you have to have faith that ahead in time, you look back and see that they always were connecting.
100%. And that's why we were talking about this earlier. Like someone asked my wife the other day, like, what do you guys like, what's your plan with your business? And I thought to myself, like, man, I don't, like, we're going well, but like, what is the exit? Like, we don't really know, because all of this was created, this direction now has been created in the last 3 years.
Right.
And, we did in 3 years what we couldn't even do in 15 at Drive. So to be that much more successful in the past 3 is something I'm proud of. I needed those 15 to be there. But again, we're creating lanes and we're creating, areas of our business that, like, we developed us an online teaching course for coaches who want to build their digital platform. It's a 20-hour online course. Like, I didn't think we were going to do that years ago. Like, these are things that we created now. So we're having fun with work. We're doing really well with work, and we feel a lot of passion and purpose with work, and we're just going with it. Like, but are other things going to be created in the next couple of years? Yeah, they will be. And I know they will be, because it just keeps happening. But for me to turn around and say, yeah, 5 years from now, this is my plan. In 15 and 20 years, it's my plan. I just can't do that.
It takes the creativity out of it too, to putting such strict guidelines around where you've got to, have an exit or this.
Some people can. God bless them, but not us.
Yeah.
Not us.
Yeah.
Speaking of your brother, you dropped Joe in there.
Yeah.
That's really how you and I kind of met through Joe. Joe was an amazing amateur golfer.
Yeah.
And I was coming up through the ranks when I was like 15, and I think I met him then. And we actually played in a US versus Europe match together.
Yeah.
And I was young, and he was like telling me about you and how he started a gym with you in the city. And that's how we really got introduced. And I want to know, like, why'd you start a golf gym in New York City? Were you passionate about golf? Did Joe get you into it?
Yeah. So I was playing golf, but I wasn't a diehard. Like, I enjoyed golf.
Yeah.
I think what was fun for me was I saw my brother at a young age get into golf, and he became good pretty quickly. Again, it was just, he found it was his lane. I mean, I think I went off to college. I remember in 1995, I went off to college, and he just quit every sport, and he just decided to take up golf. And, he's pretty good at everything else he played. So I think all the coaches were pretty upset. But the next thing you know, my brother's standing in a sand trap for 8 hours. And I'm like, how the hell do you do that? Like, I'd be bored out of my mind. Like, do you listen to music? Like, I didn't really get it. And then, he was small and he was hitting the ball all right. And then he was like, I want to start getting into working out. I'm like, well, I can help with that. So we start working out, and out of nowhere, like, I just start seeing him murder the golf ball. Like, he's hitting it really long. And, I think one year he put like 50 yards on his drive. Like, it was just something pretty wild.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was crazy, but he was getting strong. Like, the kid was squatting, and he was doing Turkish get-ups, and he was doing all this movement. And then when we went out to Titleist, this was all around the time. Think about this, 95, 96, 97. Who's pretty big around that time? Tiger.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's looking at Tiger like, oh, this guy works out. And we're looking at that as an opportunity. We're like, all right, so here's a guy who's normalizing, or he's going to normalize fitness. That was one thing that we really said, that we nailed. We hit the bullseye. We were like, in those years, we were like, this guy is the best golfer we'll probably ever see in our lifetime. Yeah. And he's the one who's going to normalize fitness in golf. Because fitness in golf was like, oh, don't get tight. Gary Player was stretch. Yeah. Gary Player was one of the fittest golfers. I mean, no one was talking about back then though how Gary would do 100 squats with his caddy on his back and all these crazy things. Like, Gary was working out, but it wasn't being glorified. Now Tiger was winning at a level, and everyone's starting to see him get into shape and get more muscular. Yeah. So that was an opportunity. And we were like, all right, well, let's learn about this and let's get good at this. So I have a very interesting background. I mean, I work with superheroes, and then I'm doing content for Golf Channel. It's like, where'd you make this shit up from? So so again, like, from a marketing standpoint, I always tell people, like, know your lane. Like, I've always was kind of a little bit all over the place, but I also think I'm the rarity in the business. Like, you're not going to see someone who is doing golf content on the Golf Channel, the head of Golf Fitness for, a Golf Pass, and then
with Rory,
and then is on the cover of Muscle and Fitness the last 2 years. It's like, it's a little bit odd. So, but again, I embraced it and I went with it, and it was kind of funny because a lot of the golf enthusiasts was like, oh, he's more of a fitness guy, and the fitness people were like, oh, he's more of a golf guy. Like, they all had to hate on you, but it worked. So.
Well, and that's why, like, when I got introduced to you through Joe, our goal was always to be like, when we first started training, we were like, we're not going to train for golf. We're going to train to be an athlete. Yeah. We're going to train for our bodies to be at the utmost level of performance. And
my thought process has not changed there. But
right. Yeah.
It has not changed.
Yeah. It's amazing. I love it. I think everybody should train like that.
Yeah.
And, man, just like coming out of college and learning your way and the way that what we've talked about, the way you treat people, the way you raise your family, the way that you drive a business with that level of integrity is really motivational and can really be a lesson for people on every realm. It's not just for fitness or for golf or for business. I think in this conversation so far, there's been amazing lessons in many different attributes, in many different lanes. And I don't know, I'd love to like reminisce a little bit about some things.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Dude, that's fun. Stories are fun, right?
Yeah.
I mean, God, you and I got plenty of them. Back in the Masters, I mean, there's so many different fun stories. I mean, there's so many things that people don't. I mean, listen, I still think you're one of the guys that brought like nutrition on the golf course. I mean, don't laugh at that. Like you were at the Masters walking down the fairway eating grass-fed bison and vegetables and like
raw green beans and
raw green. People are like, what is this guy doing? Like, this is what you needed from a mental standpoint. Like, you felt like you're always someone that I think mentally, like you enjoyed having that edge.
Of course.
I feel like you were like, you're walking down the fairway, like, yeah, you guys are eating your little crappy protein bars and like I'm eating
Dasani water.
Yeah. And like and that to me was special. I remember going off to Whole Foods and you and I making a homemade bone broth.
Yeah, at Augusta,
Georgia. We're walking down the fairway.
I'm surprised there's a Whole Foods there.
And like it gelled up. It was disgusting. He almost vomited on a
Dude,
hole.
we went to the butcher in Whole Foods where we were like, we want your biggest femur bone of a cow. And he's like, all right.
The guy's like, what?
Yeah. And like cut it in half.
Like, cut it in
us.
half right now.
And we're like, all right, we're making our own bone broth. We go back. We have like 6 guys staying in a rental house in Augusta.
And this is your first time in the Masters.
John Daly's 5 miles away, like doing trick shots and drinking rum and Coke. And we're like, at Hooters. And we're literally like, not even 5 miles, might have been a mile away. And we're literally in Whole Foods. Like, can we pick out that femur, please? We want to bring it back.
And your organic raspberries and stuff, please. Man. And then, so yeah, we create this bone broth. We're cooking every meal. We have buddies over. We have like crazy stories about them going out at night and having tacos show up on our car windshield.
Yeah, we're not going to tell the full story, but
continue going.
We could no, but I am going to say this. One of his buddies met a woman and passed out when she was picking him up food to come back to the house. And then we woke up the next day to find the Taco Bell that she was delivering to him smushed all over the window of the vehicle that I think we were supposed to drive. So we had to take another vehicle.
Yeah, this was the night before round 1.
I mean, it's a natural response from her.
Yeah, totally natural. And by the way, he deserved it. I love it. But he totally, or like, I think another great story there was the fact that we were playing at some, I don't want to say junkie, but some public.
A public course in Augusta.
In Augusta. That we were on the course with some random golf cart. I don't know how maybe it was
the house we rented had a golf cart
with like jacked up wheels on it.
Jacked up wheels, and they had a whole set of extra clubs,
like
but they were
pings,
from like
those old
1981.
Pings. Right.
And
Morgan's teeing off the next day, and he's sitting here with these junky pings, like, oh my God, I think these things are older than me. And he's like, we actually played 9 holes. We had a little tournament. What do we call it? The
oh my God, yeah.
The Lakeville Open at Augusta.
The something cup or something. Yeah.
It was some whatever the complex we were staying at. We like named it that.
There was 6 of us. So it was 3-on-3 with 1 set of clubs.
Only you playing in the Masters?
Yeah.
That was staying in the house?
Yeah. It was me and Don and Steve and Mark and Adam.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
everyone's like, we're going out tonight. I'm like, we're not.
Who else was there? Sam. And was Steve, my caddy, staying there? Maybe too.
Steve was there. I don't remember Steve was there.
Anyway, man, that was just an insane week. You were training me every day at Gold's gym.
Yeah, I remember seeing Dustin Johnson with his coach Joey D. And Dustin just kept looking at me. All he kept saying to me was like, I can't believe how hot it is out here. It's like, this is crazy. Like, we were literally in the gym, like dumping sweat. Dustin's right next to me, dumping sweat. Obviously, the workout times would change every day because the tee times would change. But just having those type of credentials to be able to, walk around the facility and see Augusta. And, you're walking back into the PT rooms. You're seeing players get PT done. And one pro player was like down in Klondike bars. I'm like, what the hell is he doing? Like, who eats Klondike bars anymore? There's just like, just the bizarre like stuff, little things that stick out in my head now. And I'm like, wow, this is Augusta. It was probably it really was one of the most magical places that I've seen. And that week was that was fire. I mean, just watching you, then watching him compete and watching him on that Friday, I mean, almost 3 eagles, right? I mean, you almost set you had two eagles.
2 eagles, and then on 15 hit it to like 8 feet.
And coming into Friday, you didn't play great on Thursday, so you were a little behind the 8 ball for the weekend.
Yeah.
I think by the end of that tournament, you were just like, oh my God, like I've never seen him so happy. Like up until that point in his life, obviously now being a different stage in his life.
Well, I mean, just accomplishing dreams, and like, obviously you want to win the Masters, but playing in the Masters is a great dream as well. But having your family, as we said earlier, friends there with you is just like, it's amazing. And that's what I've learned now with like not playing golf for a couple of years and creating some businesses on the side, and like creating other dreams of a wellness center and teaching people how to learn themselves. And doing that with people who are special to you is really like what life is about.
100%.
And like, it's so cool. And now like getting to know you and telling you our dreams, Chelsea and I's dreams about Nakawa, and you kind of like really coming into it and helping support and being a board member, and it's just really special. And to go back to Augusta, like, it's just having those times that you'll never forget. Creating.
Grayson was
First
created.
week of
Grayson was created at Augusta.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget meeting Charlie there. I'll never forget 2 weeks before, you not knowing what you're wearing. Wow. And I remember Charlie showing up with a stack of boxes, and it was his gear for every day. And I remember us going through this being like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. And then he's named the best dressed golfer by Golf Digest, was it?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it was Golf Digest, best dressed golfer. And it was like, oh my God, like that type of, I mean, Charlie, I mean, you got to tip your cap to him for pulling that off. I mean, in a couple of weeks to do that under that type of pressure, even to have the gear made for it to fit the way that it fit. I mean, he looked unbelievable.
Yeah.
But
I remember there were joggers in play. I mean, it was something.
The backstory of it was like, he was panicking. We were both panicking. I didn't have clothes, like literally going to the event. And
he was going to have to go to the PGA store and start buying like Augusta shirts with the logo on it. He's going to be buying it like day by day. I mean, literally, that's what he felt like.
We're like creating a new brand, and we're like, okay, we have to debut this on TV at Augusta. What are we going to do? How are we going to make this? And Charlie somehow created, with his connections from Ralph Lauren in New York City, he went to like textile shops and like all these places of fabric shops, and like we're having people out of like blank sheets of fabric create these pants of the measurements that he thought I was.
Did you save all that stuff?
We do have it. We actually made like some hats out of the pants that I wore and sold them for.
You should, oh my God, you should have saved them all, and you should have literally, you should have printed them up on the wall like every day at the Master, like, because that was just, I cannot believe, it's still one of the coolest stories that I feel like is not told enough. Because that is the dream right there. That's like, he pulled it off.
It was amazing. But to be honest, the pants were so uncomfortable. Like walking around, dude, I was like readjusting myself like every 5 minutes. I don't even know how, it didn't even matter at that point.
It was 200 degrees.
I was so happy at that point. Like, it didn't matter what I was wearing. I could have worn leather pants.
It was 200. It was so hot. Yeah. God, it was special.
And the announcers were like, he's wearing this new brand called Grayson. It looks like he has like a wolf or like a bobcat on his, like, we're like, or no, a fox or a bobcat. We're like, it's a wolf, it's a man. Wolf. Come on.
Get it right.
Yeah.
Johnny Miller, get it right. Amazing.
Crazy times.
I mean, you guys have had a lot of really fun times together and light and funny, but being a fly on the wall today and listening to the brotherhood between you guys, you know, you've shared in some really challenging times in your life too.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe tell some of the stories about, you know, Don, how you were there with Morgan when he was first, you know, diagnosed, or searching even before that for years, you know, for what was going on in him, but how you were so not just physically there for him, but spiritually caring for Morgan in these moments.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you develop this bond with someone, this love, and when you see someone you truly love and care about, and you see them going through things, it's like you become affected by it. And he was taking trips all over the country. I mean, we remember calling Greg Rose and this doctor and Bill Healy and Dines and all these doctors, HSS, and I tried being as present as possible. Like a couple of the nerve testing appointments you had to go through. I mean, I would see you sitting there going through these tests, and I get
That's brutal.
I get just nauseous thinking about it.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier. Like I haven't reminisced on it in a long time, but about going through those EKG tests and like having them stick needles in me and shock me, and I'm sitting next to him holding his hand literally, like, and I'm just going, you're going to get through this, hang in there. And he just sat there the whole time with this dead straight face on, and he just gritted it. He didn't get emotional. I think he made me tough by watching how tough he was. But even the MRI, I mean, that one MRI, for some reason, I know you're the one who had to go through it. So obviously the nerve testing was the most difficult for you, according to you. But watching you have to sit in that MRI chamber for 3 hours, I was like, I don't know how the hell this guy's in a shell, literally up to here 3 hours. It was hot.
And you're just like, oh my God, like 4 or 5 years of this. And you're like, at what point, like, what's going on here? And we thought it was like, oh, you got into a mountain biking accident? Like, did you rupture something?
Was there a nerve entrapment under your clavicle?
Yeah. Like everything, like what's going on here? Like you think bizarre things, and then, finally you get the news, and, you at least have some direction now. But then I think the second Morgan found out about it, he was like, immediately, he was just like, all right, this is what I'm dealt, and we got to figure this out. And it was, it's an amazing story, because most people would just turn around and deal with it. Well, the odds, the chances, this is what no, he's in Nepal. And we're communicating when he's in Nepal. I'm like, what's your day like? He's like, well, I'm up in the hills, up in these mountains for how many? I'm not exaggerating. 8 hours, like meditating 7 hours.
Well, they were rubbing me with herbs for 6 hours a day for 90 days straight. No,
I can't sit here still.
break.
Like I'm moving around. But you learn from that. Like you turn around, you're like, okay, this can be done. Like it's never imagined it could be done, but it can.
But you were there from the day one, like when my pec started atrophying. It's like, all right, what the fuck? Did I pull something? Are we working out too hard? Is it like, what's going on?
We thought
is there like a line of fucking worms in there, like eating away my muscle?
I mean, we were like, well, are you engaging one pec more than the other? Like you're getting all these crazy things in your head. I mean, this is newfound territory for me. I was just, but took what, 5 years?
5 years of searching it.
5 years of searching.
Yeah. 5 years of money out of my own pocket because insurance wouldn't cover it.
Which is, that to me is bizarre.
Yeah. Like, I mean, when I went to Mayo Clinic in, where was it? Like Wisconsin or Michigan or something like that. They were like, yeah, insurance is not going to cover it. I was like, I don't care. I'm here for 5 days. Like every test you can possibly do to figure out what this is, do it.
Yeah.
Like, here's my MX. Like,
yeah, I'll figure it out. Now that's pressure.
And that but then in the end, I was surrounded in my bed with like 10 doctors, and they're like, yeah, sorry, like this is the doctor for this, the doctor for this, the specialist, whatever. Like, yeah, we don't know what's going on. But like Don was there by my side the whole time. And we were like, every time I'd go back to New York City, and him and Charlie Weingroff and Belisa Vranish, our breathwork coach, and like we were just, and Dr. Bill Healy and Josh Dines, we would all just like put our minds together, be like, all right, what's going on? Let's take the next steps. Let's continue getting jacked. Have body armor on. Let's keep working hard.
That was the line. Yeah. You should print that up here somewhere. It's like body armor. Like people don't understand what that means. It's that we're not referring to it as like looking jailhouse jacked. It's like unfortunately, we're all going to go down one day. Like I said, like we're going to trip, we're going to fall. Happened to my grandmother in her 80s. She shattered her elbow. Like if she had that body armor, if she had that bone density, if she had some muscle to support that, maybe she wouldn't have gone under the needle for 7 hours, and then her health declined after that and she lost her life. It's like, we need to be strong, physically. It's and obviously mentally, of course, but like we need mental strength and physical strength. So,
But it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, like that mental strength, that mental callous, I guess, by pushing yourself through the hard times is like really how you get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk about too some of, the harder times in your career too, whether it be with, the gym or maybe more in your personal life too. And I know Morgan was there for you in a lot of those times too,
Oh,
which
100%.
strengthened the brotherhood even more to be there for each other.
No, it was like, I'm in this facility drive, and there was one aspect of the business that was just taking off, like the names that were coming in there. We were generating good revenue, but I think, we were in a really difficult lease at the time. It was just very expensive. It was $2 million a year just to break even. So you had to sell a lot of memberships and do a lot of training. And I think 07, 08 really set us back a while because we lost our whole corporate, all of our corporate spending, like all of these companies that were coming in and doing these events during the week to entertain clients was just like poof. It just like a vanished into thin air. So we had to pivot. And I remember that year we were lighting money on fire every month, and we had to hold on to the lease because we were PG. We had a personal guarantee. So landlord obviously, has the right to come after us. So it really forced us to get creative. And, we had some close friends who fronted us some cash, and, it took us a while to pay them back, but we paid them back. And, I think and Morgan was one of those people. I mean, and one of the reasons why, it was at a time too, where we probably shouldn't have been, throwing money our way. But, it's just, you're at a point in your life where it's really humbling when you got to ask for help. I remember Con Ed shutting down the power on us one day, and clients are like, what the hell happened? And we're like, oh my God, we think Verizon hit a line out in the street. I'm sitting there looking at my brother like, holy shit. Like, and going to use Amex. Amex is shut down. And like, you're like, wow, this is real. Like, I didn't realize when I signed up for this was going to happen, but guess what? I can't complain. I got to fucking make this happen. And I think at those moments, you figure out ways to get creative, and you go to a couple clients like, hey, listen, you spent X last year. Would you give us Y? And we'll value it at what their training services, and you'll make, this amount of money on it. And we did these prepaids and we burned it all down. And it really forced us to have to get creative. And it's also why now when things are going well, I'm never like, all right, man. Like, I'm like, oh, wow. Like, we're doing really good, but like, how do we stay relevant and how do we stay current? And we can't get complacent. Like,
that's so good there.
Like, complacency is one of the words that, like, it's one word that I'm just like, I'm scared of. Like, I just feel like the second I get complacent with anything, like, my life's just going to tank. And maybe that's a terrible attitude to have, but I just feel like it's just the way I was raised. And,
But even to talk about it now, like those times what we both shared just there are like the hardest times that we've ever gone through. And it's like to be able to be sitting here right now and being like, hey, we got through this. We're getting through this, and we're back here. We're training, like we're continuing to grow and get better. It's like, it's humbling. It's humbling,
but I'm also not like, yeah, we made it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not like, that's why I'm sitting here right now. And I'm a little like, you're seeing my posture. I'm kind of I'm ducking a little bit because I'm like, yeah, man, like this happened. This was really real.
Yeah.
I almost missed 37 consecutive payrolls.
Holy.
Like that's rough. Like our pay period was every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine the amount of stress every night going to bed being like, oh my God, like what are we going to do? Like these are, and you feel like you can tell these stories now because you got through it. But I'm also like, yeah, I never want to be back there again.
Yeah.
Like
you live with the experience of it forever.
Man. So,
to learn from it and be able to protect from it again. And yeah.
That's part of too. I mean, also a lot of the people I were around, I think they always wanted to be sitting in that seat. Like, oh, I can do a better job than you, or I could sit in yours. Like, but when things would go wrong, they wouldn't want to deal with that part. They only wanted to deal with the good stuff. And I think entrepreneurs are people who, are getting into business, whether it's a small business, whatever it is. It's like, there's a risk. There's a level of risk. And it makes me sick. Anytime I hear someone's business tanks or is not successful or they're having a tough time, like I feel it.
Yeah.
Cause I'm like, oh man, like it's real. And I went through it. I mean, fortunately we were able to get through it, and I was able to exit from my gyms in probably one of the best ways possible. Like it really, like it ended up being good after, all the good and bad that we went through, but I don't take a moment of it for granted. And I don't look back at a moment of it and I don't like, oh, yeah, we were fine. I never doubted myself. Like, fuck you. Like, yeah, when you almost missed 37 consecutive payrolls, you start doubting yourself.
Yeah.
You're like, am I doing the right thing here? Like, is this what I should be doing? Like, give me an answer right now. Like, hit me with lightning, something to just tell me, like, should I go this way or should I go that way? And the best advice that someone gave me is like, dude, it's going to be all right. And I wanted to be like, F you. Like, no, it's going to be all right. Like, you're going to be all right. Like, you realize afterwards, like, it's going to be all right.
I believe me, I've asked myself that question a million times. This is what I should be doing.
Yeah.
Like, and you've always been there. Like, hey, it's going to be all right.
Yeah. I would say that to you, right?
Yeah.
Or like, you would tell me I'm going to make this decision and I would be like, dude, go with it. Like, you're going to make a decision, just own it. Like, when my son screws up now, he's like, but, I'm like, dude, just own it.
Yeah. It's a choice.
Like, own it, man. Like, you made a choice. Excuse my language, you fucked up. 14 years old, just own it. Just say, Dad, I fucked up. And he'll look at me and be like, yeah, I fucked up. I was like, okay, good. Let's move on.
Cool.
Right.
I just want him to take ownership over that.
Yeah.
Stop making excuses.
It's such a lesson.
Yeah, ownership's such a powerful thing too. I mean, internally, when you take ownership over your missteps in life, whether they're personal or professional, I mean, I think probably and this isn't necessarily one man's quote, but it's a theory in leadership in general is, to take when the times are rough as a leader, to take that responsibility on yourself as the leader of the organization. Yeah. And when times are good, to give that glory back to the team. Yeah. Right. But when it's tough, it's time to look in the mirror and say, I'm the leader of the organization, and you take responsibility for that.
Yeah.
Right. And I hear it a lot in your voice as you're talking about it, sitting here today.
I mean, you just look back on it now. It's like, it really is this journey. Like, if people want to be in that position, they want to wear that hat. Like, they have to be willing to go through some tough things. And listen, I say it's tough. Tough to me is finding out that someone you love has terminal illness. Like, that's tough. Like, this is tough for business. Let's be clear about this. Like, missing 37 consecutive payrolls sounds terrible, but like, my kids are okay. Mm-hmm. I'll miss payrolls every week for the rest of my life. Like, just make sure my family's fine. So I think we also got to look at like what's important. But when you're going through it in that moment, like it's like, wow, this sucks and this is real. But the thing that I never stopped doing was I never stopped working, and I never felt bad about myself. And I would show up and say, all right, man, let's go. Let's push, let's keep working. Let's get creative. Yeah. What do we have to do to make this happen? And I think that was the thing I look back on now. And that was, I'm proud of myself about. I'm like, anyone who knows me in that facility, we were talking about certain names that came up earlier. They will never, not one person is ever going to turn around and be like, no, Don didn't work his ass off. Yeah. Like, I worked my ass off. And that's something nowadays a lot of young kids don't want to do. They just, like, someone messaged me the other day and they shot me a DM like, I want to do what you do. And I was like, man,
you don't know.
Like seriously, like, okay, like I get it, but like, you don't know what I had to get through to even get to this point. And even now I'm not sitting here with my hands behind my head. Like, you want to do what I do? Then, okay, let's start here. Go work at a big box gym and clean up weights for a year. Mm-hmm. Then go off on your own and start your own business. Then go raise money. Then fail at that. Then start another business and fail at that. And another business and fail at that. It's like you get kicked in the nuts constantly. Like, it's painful to be able to get up from that and keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. And who inspired me? There were a lot of big names in the fashion industry, big names, like some of the biggest names on the planet. They were telling me that there were points where they were sleeping under their desk. It's like, you look at companies like Calvin Klein or Tommy Hilfiger, and these guys were like, okay, like, things weren't always roses, and they went through tough times. So I think when you hear that and you see that people can get through that with thinking and strategizing differently and hard work, I think that becomes really inspiring. That's what I want the story to be. I don't want the story to be, well, how did I get there? I want to be like Tommy Hilfiger, who's worth $4 billion or whatever, the Calvin Klein, who's, no, it's like, what did they have to do to get there? And I think that's what you got to present to people. You want to be like that person? This is what they had to do. Yeah. Really? It took you 20 years? Why so long? Dude, don't talk to me. Yeah. You don't want to do this. Because I did it not to become a millionaire. I did it because I loved it.
Yeah, we'll take it back to the quote you started the conversation with that your mom taught you, right? Yeah. You love it, do it. You said, oh, nobody makes money being a trainer, right? And she said, well, do you love it? Don't worry about that part of it.
Don't worry about the money. I'm telling you, two of the most valuable lessons that she gave me. It's like, and you think about that in the second grade and in 1999, I'm 21, 22 years old. It's like, And she's taught me way more than that. But like, those are things that stick in my head vividly.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely been one of my favorite
Thanks.
quotes I've heard today.
Yeah.
It's powerful. I mean, and it's inspiring too. I mean, I feel like I've been at this age, my mid-20s, where I'm at a point, I think, where a lot of people around me are starting to give up on their dreams, actually. And I'm saying this sadly, but you start to grow up and you have bills that you need to pay, and you've got, a life that you start to build. And so you start working for, companies and having to get a paycheck. And a part of that is also then maybe you give up on that dream that you always had to be a world-class dancer or pianist or whatever it is, whatever your trade was, but to still stay driven, like, this is what I love and I'm going to make it work. That's living a life that is incredibly alive.
Yeah.
Doing what you love. It's special.
It's living life. It's like, you can't just be on the up and up all the time, because you need those lows to feel the highs.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have that roller coaster ride, and it's like, you're not striving for the lows, but you're going to have them inevitably, and you need them to be like, oh damn, I was there, now I'm here. And I'm probably going to be there at some point in some aspect again, but like, I'm going to get back up.
You said you're 28?
26.
26. So I was talking to a young kid the other day who was 28, and it popped into my head. I said, oh man, my most, so 2005, I was born in 77, 87, 97, 2005, I'm what, 27 years old? What's the math on that? 28 years old?
Yeah.
I said, the most important mistakes I made in my life was after 29. Like, the ones I learned from the most, like the ones I look back on now and say, holy shit, like, those were terrible. Like, those are shitty things to go through, but I needed to go through those.
We're all before 29.
No, they were all after.
They were all after.
So like, you haven't even hit that point yet.
Yeah.
And I really felt like my 30s was this like wake up call. I felt like for me, like the 20s was this moment of like, oh dude, I'm invincible. Like, I'm not going to die. I'm going to be successful. Nothing's going wrong.
Yeah.
And in 30s, you're like, this is real.
Yeah.
Like, all right, I might be in a little bit of trouble here. And you start making some stupid decisions, but then you start wising up and learning from it. That block of 30 to 40, it was critical. Did I love it? There were parts of it I loved, right? Like my kids.
Yeah.
That was the bulk of my kids' life right there. My marriage, that was the bulk of my marriage. We lost our home in that period of time. Sandy took our home from us. Right. So like, it literally, Hurricane Sandy wiped out our apartment in the city. We had to move back to Long Island. Lived behind my parents rent free for 3 years. And I had to live off the sale of, I ended up selling my home, and I had to live off that and not take a salary for almost 3 years. So like, there were times where like, you're like, okay, we have love, we have happiness, we have our family. And that's what kept me, my dogs, that's what, like, coming home and seeing like my family, like that's what allowed me to be like, all right, this is, come on, man. But 29 to 40, that was where I felt like some of the most valuable lessons I learned happened in that period of time. And if I didn't go through that, I think I'd be in a lot of trouble now. So for people that I speak to that are 26, someone the other day, 28 years old, who was telling me they're a little bummed out, they're making a career change. And I'm like, dude, seriously? Like, you have, like, life hasn't even started. Like, for me at this point, I felt like life was just starting. 29 is a weird year, but that was the year. That was around the year, I had my first child.
That was around the year I got that's when you had your first child.
Yeah, right around when Amelia's 16 now. So yeah, I had my first child around that time, and I got married around that time, and drive like right after that 07, 08 period. We were burning $100,000 a month, lighting it on fire. Like, it was just disappearing for a year. And I'm like, I had to work off I've talked about this publicly. I had to work off over $1 million in training. People fronted me money in training. I had to burn that down through personal training. You know how much training you have to do? Like, the hours.
There's your 40,000 sessions you said earlier.
But people don't understand. Like, I was going into work at 3:45 in the morning to train a bigwig over at Lehman Brothers. And I was, well, you're not open at that time. I'm like, of course I am. Well, it doesn't say, you're right. I'm the owner. I open whatever time I want. You want to start at 3:45? Yeah. Sign up. Start at 3:45. Okay. It was like that type of like, every cent coming in. I was getting in a car service going to Bedford by 6 a.m. to make $600 to be back in the city by 8:15 to start my day, 3 mornings a week. It's like, you do these things, people don't want to do it. Oh, what'd you do that for, a month or two? No, I did that for 6 years. Do that for 6 years. Sleeping in a car to Bedford, up to Rye to work with someone because he was awesome and he paid me well. But these are things trainers don't want to go through this. Trainers just want to snap their fingers, get their certification, and start making millions of dollars online. Unfortunately, some of them are, because there's some terrible coaches out there that are selling products online and they haven't gone through that. But I think the industry, that's a different conversation, but the industry will start cleaning up. Quality control will start picking up a little bit when it comes down to who you're hiring online or not.
Yeah, but the level of like experience that you have is so in front of you. Like, it's just like exuding from you when you step into a room with them. It's just like, there's I've seen a million other trainers and they think they know what they're talking about, but it's like, you've been through it. And
thank you.
Yeah. So,
and I still think there's that much. That's the exciting thing. I'm 46. Oh man, I'm just getting started. Like, I really feel like in business, when I'm doing with my wife right now, I just feel like there's so much ahead of us, and we're just pumped. Like, I still wake up in the morning and I'm like pumped. I'm just like, I'm still excited. You can hear it in my voice when we're training today. I'm like, all right, what are we doing? Like, I left after that last set. I'm like, man, I could have done hundreds on that. Like, like I fell a little short next week. Okay, hundreds. The week after, 110s. Like, let's go. Like, you got to keep like part of that thirst. Like, I don't want to ever lose that. That word complacency is something my grandfather, it's like, there's a line that my grandfather used to give me: run scared, try harder, there's no room for complacency. I know, like, I used to hear when I was 14 and I was like, yeah, whatever, grandpa.
Run scared, try harder, and
there's no room for complacency. That was like, you could have tattooed that on my forehead. He used to say that to me all the time. And I'm like, yeah, grandpa. Okay, grandpa.
Stuck with you though.
Oh yeah. Now I'm like, why didn't I I should have looked at you and been like,
yeah,
like, oh my God, like that's it.
How much that comment you made about the realness of life setting in, at that, when you were 29 and you just had your first child.
Yeah.
I had this kind of epiphany last night. I got in super late and took an Uber to the hotel, and there was this really nice man that drove me there from Bangladesh.
Yeah.
And I just was having conversation with him, and it's 1 a.m. He's got a picture hanging on his mirror of him and his 2 little girls, and this guy's grinding, right? So I asked him, I'm like, what's the motivation, right? And he's like, provide for my family, right? I got to go home and put food on the table for them. And not only that, but I've got family back in Bangladesh that I'm sending money to back every week.
It's amazing. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious, like that realness that set in at 29, when suddenly it wasn't just you that were on the line.
No.
Now you got a wife and you've got kids. You got more people that are depending on you than ever. That to me is a realness that's got to set in that phase of life. That maybe that's that kind of shift.
That's part of it. I also think 30s, I just think there's also this maturity that happens in your 30s, and you're just like, okay. 20s is really somewhat of this, like, for me, it was a bit reckless.
Yeah.
Because I'm working, but there's just this freeness.
Out of college.
Yeah, like, oh, hey, buddy, been working my ass off all week. Want to go to Miami this weekend? Yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
let's go party. And you're just kind of like throwing it around a little bit and having fun. And it was great, but it wasn't like, it was a part of my life I'm glad I had. But I'm more happy now just being home, just not having that volatility, and waking up on the weekends and feeling really good.
Yeah,
and training, running, or this morning we played hockey early, and then get with training session with you guys, and I'm working in between, and hopefully this inspires some people. I think at the end of the day, like, people need to understand, like, it's going to be okay. Like, it's like, you just gotta, like, I think part of this really is like, trust your gut and go. But you gotta be smart about it though. Like, at a certain point, you got to turn around and assess, like, am I being an idiot here? Yeah. Like, if I've just been like, am I making the right decision? But you have people around you have friends around you, you have your mentors. Like, no, man. Like, I remember when I started a second business while everything was kind of a little awry, and I had one of my buddies, Jerry Cardinal. He owns a company called Redbird Capital, and he'd kill me for mentioning his name. I don't care. I love the guy. But he turned to me and he was like, "Are you out of your mind?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You are a gym owner. What is this digital bullshit? Focus on the gym. Focus on the gym." And I'm thinking to myself, well, you don't understand, because I'm starting this digital business to help give my gym some cushion. He was right. He's 100% right. Like, you can't be in 100 different places at once. You got to be like, we were talking about the person that you met with the other day, Kenny, like, if you have that product, you got to go all in.
Yeah.
And you can't turn around, and you can't have all this external noise. This show, have you seen the show called The Bear? Mm-mm. Oh my God. It's this new show on Hulu. I binge watched it throughout the rain this weekend. Please watch it. It's your homework assignment, both of you. It's about a Michelin starred chef whose brother commits suicide, and his brother owns this like crappy restaurant, and his brother leaves the restaurant to his other brother, who's the Michelin star chef. So his brother, who's the Michelin star chef, comes in, takes over this dysfunctional restaurant that's having money problems with this dysfunctional staff. But the chef has this level of excellence. So the movie's about, the series is about the chef that comes in and he demands this level of excellence out of all of his employees, and they all start rising to the occasion. And they all start changing, and they all start going to culinary school, and they now renovate, and they raise money, and they all start turning into like monsters. And there's a pastry chef. He goes to Copenhagen and he studies and he learns. And he comes, I get the chills, turns into a monster. But these chefs there was nothing else in their life. There was like their life, like this pastry chef, like went to Copenhagen. He was dreaming about donuts, making donuts. And he was dreaming about the presentation and how to make it delicious. Wow. And he was like, how do I be the best? And they all wanted like everything that they ended up doing. I got through 2 seasons of it, and we're waiting for the 3rd season to come out, but they literally created this place, which was like this level of excellence.
Wow.
And hopefully it continues to elevate. But when you look at someone who is truly passionate and they dive into something and they're like, this is it, there's nothing getting in my way. And you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Sure.
You know, you remember like, it's golf.
Mm-hmm.
It's only golf. And they're just like obsessed and go, 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 go. Or it's like fitness, nutrition, and boom. And it's like, I do believe there's other things that need to happen in your life at a certain point. But to become that great, like there is no... You know, my buddy Wally Serbiak played in the NBA.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Cleveland Cavs.
Cleveland Cavs. I mean, he was at my wedding party. Really good friend of mine. He's a golf fanatic.
Yeah.
Morgan's played with him. And I remember on Friday nights when we were going out in high school, we'd be like, hey, man, we're going for pizza. He'd be like, no, I'm running with my dad. His dad, Big Walt, was serious. He played in the NBA and the ABA. And he's like, no, I'm going down to the St. Mary's. We have pickup games tonight. And I'm like, well, who you play with down there anyway? He's a couple pro guys. Wally's like 14, 15 years old at the time. Well, who are you playing with? He's like, well, Chris Mullin's down there and John Starks and all these guys are showing up. So Wally's there 14, 15 years old showing up, playing ball with NBA guys at a young age. He's running with these guys. Wally wasn't going out drinking. Yeah. Wally wasn't going out meeting girls at that time. He wasn't doing that stuff. He was like, no, this is what I want to do. So when I was watching that show the other day, I actually got really like attracted to the fact that this person was sitting there looking at desserts, like walking home from work, staring into pastry windows, like envisioning, what can I create from this?
Wow.
And that to me was like special. I'm like, wow, like that, when someone is that passionate about something that they go all in, to me, I think is a really special thing.
I agree, man. Wow. It's such a lesson, because for me, like I'm very scatterbrained sometimes, especially like not being in golf full time. My brain, I love creating, and I have a lot of visions, and it's like this thing that just keeps coming up and being like, you got to have one main thing and just do it right. And like I know what that is in my life, and yeah, it's just.
But I think also having someone to help you get organized. Right?
Totally.
Because we need
you need creatives that are coming up, and
right?
There's no one I love hearing more from than Morgan when he calls me and says, "I got an idea."
But I'm the creative and Mel executes. You know what I'm saying? So that's why our business took off, is because I'm the creative and Mel's like, oh, I could put this, I can make this happen.
Yeah, I need that.
Like, and that's where you find that, and I think that's important. But there's too many creatives out there that can't get it together. But you will find that. Like, that's who you are, because because you're relentless.
Yeah.
Like you won't stop until you do what you want to do. Like you're not one of these people that's just going to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to futz around the Corn Ferry and make a couple bucks a year and be happy and practice golf. Like, it's not who you are. Like, you need to be boom, boom, boom. I don't think you'll ever be that way.
Yeah, no chance.
I think you could, if I dropped $1 billion in your lap, I don't think don't think things would change. Maybe you fast track the build and all these things that you want to do, but I still think that
we talked about it today.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Am I right? I mean, I'm
Definitely.
right. You don't change.
If I had $1 billion, like it's just $1 billion. Like I still want to achieve things in my life and make people, not make people, show people that they can heal themselves.
Right.
And then they have more power within them than they could ever imagine. And that's like really what's my purpose in life, right? Like we're all curious, the three of us, about like bettering other people and bettering ourselves first, and showing by example really how to get there and learning along the way. But yeah, it's a great lesson to really ask yourself those hard questions, which it's funny saying that it's a hard question of like, okay, if I had $1 billion, what are you going to do now?
We'll get a jet and we can go be places quicker. I mean,
I'll be flying a jet around myself. That's for sure.
Yeah, you'd be flying. Yeah.
We'll get a jet and we'll just get there faster.
Exactly.
We'll work more efficiently.
Waste less time.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard a good wisdom on this topic though the other day of someone who ideates a lot and is very creative, which I can relate to as well. And it honestly, as I'm thinking about it, relates a little bit to something you were talking about earlier today about making those little decisions each day, like to get back on the train, right? So it's like, when do you want to start? Well, let's choose something better to eat tonight. It's that one in a row theory, right? But what he was talking about to me was becoming a finisher, right? Meaning like if you have these ideas at some point, really see one through and become a finisher of things, right? Mm-hmm. And the other thing that was coming up for me as I was listening to you guys and hearing you talk about the passions in your life as you've grown is you've had certain people in your life that have been really consistently there for you, or kind of people you could go to. And one of my best friends back home, Trent Jones, said to me the other day, and I shared this with you in the car today, to think of almost a mental boardroom that you have of who are those, handful of people that you can go to that lead a life. And this is probably the most important part, that lead a life that you look up to.
Yeah.
Right? Because then you're going to people and talking to them and having concerns about, where should I turn right or left here? And you're listening and hearing from people that you also look up to.
Yeah.
Right? And are leading a life that mimics what you want to be in. I don't know how that lands with you guys, but
it's surrounding.
Are you asking, is there someone?
Could be someone, could be several.
Yeah, I think you look at different lives and you okay. Like I'm pretty comfortable who I am and where I'm at in that sense. And that doesn't mean like I'm not looking at other people. Like I'm inspired by people.
Yeah.
Like one of them, I'm going to drop a big name and he's someone very close to me, Ryan Reynolds, like really inspires me.
Guy's epic.
He's unbelievable, but for so many different reasons. Like him and his wife inspire me. Like Blake has been one of the most solid women in my life that's not family related. I mean, she has been like she's been so incredible for me. And Ryan has been so inspiring. And even through COVID, the support that they showed me, the worry that they had for me, and how they were like, okay, we're here to help, and always putting posts up for me on their page and doing these things that were so unselfish, and it was just out of love. And but watching they have 4 kids, and they have successful businesses, and how they treat people and how charitable they are. And to do that on the scale that they do it on, I think is so inspiring.
Yeah.
That to me is something I look at and go, wow, like that to me is really impressive. And they're probably the ones that really impress me the most. And there's others, celebs I work with, that I find incredibly impressive because they're just amazing people. But I think what they're doing from a business standpoint and a family standpoint globally, it's like, wow. It's like even what Ryan's done with Wrexham to be able to go into this town. And yeah, is he massively successful? Sure. Everything he's doing is making a difference.
Yeah.
Everything from even Aviation Gin, like he sold the company and there were all these specific, drivers or people that helped him along the way that he contacted. And he was like, we're going to take care of you. And they were like, what? Like things that like he didn't have to do, or the charitable things that they do that they don't talk about, that they're not posting on social media for recognition.
Right.
They do it underneath, underneath the table. I've got stories about Blake where, you know, she's showed up to hospital beds of people that, you know, unknown people that needed specific surgeries that suddenly just happened, and never talked about these stories. It's like when you look at people do good like that and they're not looking for a pat on the back, that to me, I admire. When a guy can go into a city in Wales, that's basically the city's fading. People's jobs they're losing jobs, and their hope is the soccer team. He resurrects the city to the point where it's become a global name.
It's insane.
And I remember last year going on social media and seeing that it outperformed Wrexham, which was a 4th or 5th tier team. It outperformed Manchester United that day on social media interaction. Oh my God. Like, could you imagine, like, do you know what he's done for businesses there, him and Rob? And they've allowed businesses there, restaurants, bars, to double, triple in business. They've allowed these players to provide for their families. They've allowed the city now to rebuild. Like he's like, to see someone make that type of difference globally, to me is like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not about it going in his pocket. It's about like, wow, look at the change that they're making. So that to me is, I think when you asked me that was immediately the first thing that I thought about. That popped into my head of names that people would know.
I relate that back a lot too, though, to where you are today and what you've built today. And I think one of the hardest things to do, especially in the service industry with an individual, is to scale oneself, right? You've only got 24 hours in a day as an individual. So when you're a trainer, and you hear this all the time, go back to money, you know, well, how can I make more? How can I scale this?
Yeah.
And you've built an incredible model here of scaling you and your team around you.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, you know, where you are today. You had this incredible picture in the front room, you know, the Challenger group that came together, you know, in 2020.
That was really cool. I mean, that was unexpected. I mean, March 16th, which was a Monday, I'll never forget it. 2020, Governor Cuomo, at the time, our Governor Cuomo said gyms are closing. And again, my wife was like, you need to build a program. And I'm like, you're right, I do. And it was so funny. We emptied out our living room. It looked like it was like a fire going off. We're like moving out couches and rugs. And I'm like in a sleeveless shirt, barefooted with shorts. And I build this program. I literally sit up building this 4-week program. And I'm like, you got to shoot this. And she shoots it with the iPhone. And she loads it into a Dropbox. And we start getting calls the next day. And the calls were like, hey, would you give us a workout? Cosmo magazine, Shape magazine, Men's Health, Men's Fitness, Muscle and Fitness. I mean, there's probably another 15, 20 publications. So I'm like, yeah, I'll give you a workout. What do you want? They're like, could you just give us an arm workout, an ab workout? And I'm like, I'll give you a full 4-week workout. And they were like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, 4 weeks, body weight, no equipment. It's yours. And they were like, oh my God. So, you know, we ended up collecting, I think in the 4 weeks, we collected about 200,000 emails.
Wow.
Just like not even realizing this was going to happen, honestly, because who's going to plan for that? And then out of nowhere, I start getting calls from all of these magazines. Like, they wanted you to do a live workout now. And I'm like, oh, here we go. In a 30-day span, my wife and I figured, and this is an accurate number, in 30 days, I did between 120 and 140 real-time live workouts.
Wow.
What?
I was doing 4 to 5 a day plus my own workout. So it'd be like Cosmo, 11 a.m., Instagram takeover, 45-minute body sculpt workout, or day 2, go. Plus, I think I had COVID that week because I'm walking down and my wife's like, you're dying, you're sick. I'm like, I got to do this. Like, this is an opportunity. Like, I'm just going to go in between. I was taking 5 showers a day because for that first week, because I would start teaching and I'm dumping sweat. And after I had to like shower, throw clothes on, like, Mel, get the tripod ready, set it up, set the camera up. I'd come running down. I'd be like, hey, muscle fitness, here we go. Don Saladino coming to you. Okay, this is what we do. We have a full body weight workout, time under tension. I'm going to talk to you about this is what we need to do. 45 minutes to an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, 45, dude, every day for 30 days.
Dude.
And it was just like, you're capitalizing on this time. My wife's like, why are you working out? I'm like, I got to get my weights in. Like, this is all body weight. I need weight training. Like, I have to do this at a certain point. So, you know, I think I lost probably 10 to 15 pounds that month. Like, I was literally trying to eat whatever I could and just keep calories in my body. But those were moments where did not expect to develop this type of, you know, following in that period of time. And then, we started offering we offered a free challenge the following month, and then people came into my community and they didn't realize it was something I really wanted to do. How can I take the same attention that I would give to like someone I worked with one-on-one and try and scale this now? So what I did was I started these challenges, and what they would get was they would get the monthly workout with videos. They would get a morning video from me answering everyone's question. So if I had 1,000 people on the challenge and I had 300 questions, I would sit up for 3 hours writing down. Morgan asked about the ketogenic diet. Sammy asked about intermittent fasting. Johnny asked about the difference between a split squat and a real split squat. And there were cues in my head. I would not forget a question. I'd be like, oh, Morgan asked, question number 1 today. Day number 1, guys, thanks for being here. Day number 1, Morgan asked about the ketogenic diet. Let me explain it. And I would answer every question on this live Facebook video. And I've done that now every day, 5 days a week for the last 3.5 years.
Holy cow.
I haven't missed I get 3 weeks off a year because there's always an extra week on certain months. And that's like a week off for us. Otherwise, I have not missed a day, not one day. So I offered that into our community. In the first year, the challenge community between April and January sent me this big poster. Wish you guys can see it. Maybe they could put up a little, but it's little thumbnails of all these pictures of all their faces flexing. And it says at the bottom, assembled in 2020. And it's when I started this community at a time when people didn't have.
Badass.
Yeah, they didn't have, like they weren't able to go socialize. So now it's like, it's amazing. They're started like on my community. It's book clubs.
Yeah.
Or like wine clubs. Or there's an AM group working out. There's a PM group working out. And I bring on special guests on a Wednesday. You should come on a Wednesday.
Love to.
You should talk to the group.
Yeah.
It's great. We'll have anywhere from as little as 50 people to as much as we've had as many as 800 people. It's like, it depends on the time of year, but it talk about inspiring stories, Navy SEALs we bring on, breathing coaches, functional medicine doctors. So it's really become a cool little hub for us to be able to coach people to scale.
Wow. Yeah,
and it all comes back to that love too. I mean, you can see it in your eyes when you talk about it. Like, you do this because you love it.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Am I gonna stop one day? I don't know. Probably not. I have no idea. I don't know. It's not my plan. Like, if someone asks me, I'm like, I don't know. Like, all I'm focused on is now. It's like, let's focus on now.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you're gonna stop.
Hope not.
We're not gonna stop.
Never.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, maybe as we wrap up in the next, few minutes, like, if there was, I want to ask the question in 2 parts, and maybe it's the same answer, but when you think about, kids, going through their teens, coming into college, whatever it may be, what is, your biggest piece of advice to them with what you've learned in your life? And the second question I'd ask also is, maybe looking at someone who's going through a big change in their life, in their adulthood, right? And maybe it's a career change or it's a big personal life change. Yeah. We always ask the question of like, what would you say to the kids? But, there's also adults that go through huge changes in life where you don't know where to turn. And I'm curious what your advice is for those too.
Yeah, I think we'll start with the kids. First off, just be patient, like follow your, like if there is passion and purpose, follow that. Like if you love cooking and you want to be a chef, like explore that. If you want to, if law is your thing, explore that. Like I think we need to really, if you're lucky enough to be able to chase something you love, like I would definitely focus on that. There's a lot of people out there that are like, I'm very successful and I don't love what I do, but it provides and it puts food on the table. And I'm like, okay, great. Like you're doing well. And if there's nothing else you want to do, then ride it out. And there's other things in life you can find that passion and purpose with, right?
Yeah.
But like, I think if you have the ability to chase something that you love, do that, because I think a lot of times we're chasing dollar signs, and anyone getting involved in my business for money, you're making a huge mistake. Like you can't, like it doesn't, like session rates, this like provide value.
Yeah.
It's a really important thing in life. Provide value. I wanted people listening. I wanted people thinking of me and talking about me at dinner.
Yeah.
Being like, this guy has changed my life. He provided value. Oh, top 5 most important people in my life, Donnie's in there. Top 5 people that would take a bullet for me, Donnie's there. Like this sounds sick, but this is literally what I tried to create. I wanted that type of value in people's lives. I wanted people to look at me being like, no, he's one of the most solid people I've ever met. And I wanted that. Does it always work out that way? It can't be perfect, right? But I think that's what I would tell the young, teen or someone trying to figure it out. Like, dude, just add value. Whatever you do, if you're sweeping floors, kick ass at it.
Yeah.
When I was working at Crest Hollow and I was sweeping floors, honestly, you're gonna laugh. Like I wanted to stand out. I wanted people looking at me being like, this kid's a savage. Like, look at how much, seriously, I was 13, 14 years old, running around the floor, sweeping like a lunatic or moving around as a lunatic. And people were just like, this guy's a machine. I was young. It sounds ridiculous, but it's literally like that type of mentality I want. Now for the adult, man, I think it's going back to that line. It's all going to be all right.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine the other day who just, left a job. He's a very smart guy. He's got a great attitude. He's like, I'll find something. Is there a little fear in there? I'm sure there is. There was for me. But you also, like, if you sit there, worrying is not going to get things done. You got to become relentless. You got to be organized. What I respected about him is he's like, yeah, I'm out of work right now. I'm getting paid for it, but I'm treating every day like I'm working.
Yeah.
So I'm waking up at a certain time, meeting at a certain time. I'm training at a certain time. And guess what? I'm job hunting at a certain time, and I'm relentless. Like, bravo. Like, that's what you got to do. But I think what happens sometimes is we just expect to be saved and we want things to fall in our laps. It's just not the reality.
Yeah.
It really is.
That's true. You
That's
gotta work,
true.
man. I guess, man, thank you for sharing all that stuff. The last thing we'd really love to hear is about the title of this podcast. It's called I Can Fly.
Wow. I like it.
We like to ask each person as our guest what that means to you. If you verbalize that or kind of talk about it in your own head, if you say it in your own head, what does that mean to you? Is there a time in your life where you felt like you could fly?
Yes, and it's a good feeling. I think when you start waking up and you feel like things are just clicking. God, it could have been this week for me. Like, you wake up, I think this morning it might have happened. I'm driving to hockey. No, seriously, I'm driving to hockey this morning. My kids are good. My wife's good. I'm like, I'm driving to hockey. Got you guys coming over today. My landlord's not beating down my door. Con Ed's not shutting my power off. My Amex works. It works well. And I think it's a good feeling. Sometimes you have that feeling, not where there's no stress in your life, because I'm worried about my mother going through her treatments and I'm worried about things. But I think you got to step back once in a while and be like, doing all right, and this is, life's good. And I'm just, let's keep it going, man. But let's keep it going.
Yeah.
Because the second I turn around and say, oh, you know what, I'm kind of slow today. Let's just do jack shit. It's okay once in a while to say that.
Yeah.
Once you're 3, 4, 5 days in a row on that, it's like, okay, man, get your ass off the couch. Unless it's your vacation. I think Sunday, I literally went to mass in the morning, and my wife and I literally got on the couch and we watched 2 seasons of The Bear from like morning till like, I actually couldn't watch the last episode that night because Hulu, for some reason, there was a problem with my Hulu.
It wasn't the same day she read the 1,300-page book.
Yeah.
It was.
The same day. It was Sunday. She sat there. She's like, how did she read today? She's like, I read 1,300 pages. And I was like, how does
there
anyone
pictures?
do that?
I mean,
no. No, I mean, people are going to say it's impossible. She's like a speed reader. I don't understand how she does it.
That's insane.
I don't get it. I can't read. I haven't read 1,300 pages in a couple of years. So, but yeah, I think I Can Fly. I think it's really, for me, when you said that, it's that feeling. It's like, all right, man, like, keep it going. Let's keep it going. Things are good, but don't get complacent. Be grateful for what you have.
Yeah.
Don't fuck this up. It's like closing.
I love it.
Love it.
That's as real as it's going to get out of me. So.
Well,
real
quick, if people listening to this want to, find you and get more involved in what you're doing, what's the best way to go about it?
Probably Don Saladino. Go to donsaladino.com, or my Instagram's Don Saladino. You guys can email me. God, DM me. No, I'm pretty good with DMs. So if you DM me, you got any questions, want to learn more about what I do, I'll answer you. Minus the weird pictures or some of the weird stuff I get on IG. Try and pike that down a little bit. My wife's filtering that now.
I love
Good stuff, man. Guys, you guys are awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
I really appreciate you guys, and I love you.
Yeah.
Love you. No, Sarah. There we go.